I think that, there is no one directional, hierarchy at Orange Sky or value chain. The value is that community of people who are coming for all different reasons.
All right, so welcome. It's never about money community. Almost stuffed that up. That wouldn't have been a great start. But I'm really honoured and excited to have Nic Marchesi on the episode today. He's the Chief Delta Officer and he leads the innovation and imagination team, which I love imagination and dreaming. So I want to talk about that. And the charity is called or named Orange Sky, and we'll get into a little bit why it was called Orange Sky specifically. But it's the first mobile laundry service for people experiencing homelessness. And both Nic and Lucas, the co-founders, are former Young Australians of the Year and Order of Australia recipients. Did I get any of that wrong, Nic?
No, it sounds about right.
Okay, well, welcome to you.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
All right. So, I mean, it's as we've had a pre-chat and we talked a little bit about what we might talk today about on the podcast, but really around this idea that even those that you help and support who are experiencing homelessness, they do need financial resources, the pragmatic side of it, but also there is the meaning side of it that you help and offer some support around. So, maybe we can just start with that.
Yeah, for sure. So Orange Sky started 8 years ago. My best friend Lucas and I were up on Turrbal country in Brisbane and had an idea of washing and drying clothes for free, and emphasise that works. I'm sure we'll unpack it a lot in this chat. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to improve the hygiene standards of people that were homeless. And I guess where that came from was that we were fortunate enough growing up in high school to participate in a food van that our school ran that went out and gave people access to necessities. And what we realized is that there were people out there in our own backyard that didn't have access to things that we'd absolutely taken for granted in our lives, things like a meal or someone to talk to or a place to wash and dry your clothes. So we sort of left high school and it wasn't as easy to give back to the community, and had that idea of building that free mobile laundry. So we gave it a go, and we can unpack that a little bit later. But the reason we did that was that tonight in Australia, there's over 122,000 people that don't have a safe place to call home. And what that means when you break it down is that 1 in 200 of us don't have a safe place to call home. And that was something that we never understood, and we potentially never will understand the true depths of what it is to live without a home. But what we did know is that we wanted to do something about it.
I've heard Lucas speak before about the fact he doesn't really know exactly why this came about, why there was a kind of wellspring of passion and motivation for this particular endeavor. But it was maybe a multitude of different things. There wasn't one moment. Is that the same for you, Nic?
Yeah, for sure. I think we asked people, what would something helpful be, and something that we definitely identified is that laundry had been overlooked, and Lucas and I couldn't be any more different in our skill sets, but we are definitely the same in our values and wanting to give things a crack. So I guess this naivety and this challenge of everyone told us it was impossible to get washing machines to work in a van, and for a long period of time they were right, and unfortunately some days they're still right because it's very complicated. But I guess what we realized was that these things that we then started talking about connected with people, and I think that's one of the beauties about Orange Sky is that we have people from all walks of life coming together who all different, but also when they connect, they realize that there's a lot of things that they have in common. And,
Mm,
those common things for Orange Sky is, a connection to textiles and fabrics that, people, regardless of where you are in your life, have had some relationship with. We talk about, loneliness and isolation. And our mission at Orange Sky now is to positively connect communities. And the fabric of those communities is relationships.
mm,
So,
mm.
people too often are lonely, ignored, or isolated. And that's very common. But I don't think there was like this one box that we ticked that put Orange Sky into a path of confidence or growth. It was these continual everyday aha moments that has been attributed to what Orange Sky has achieved.
It strikes me that those business owners or founders of any organization that have a strong passion and a feeling of connection with the meaning of what they do often have a very strong resilience to knockbacks and problems and hurdles along the way. And when I think about your story, it doesn't come without some risk taking, some significant knockbacks, some pretty funny moments, some really frustrating moments. Can you perhaps take us down the path of getting to a point where you actually have a functional product, for want of a better term, to actually help?
Yeah, so it's October 2014, and I'd come home from working in what I thought was my dream career, and told my parents like, "Mum, Dad, Lucas and I are going to start this free mobile laundry." And my parents are like, "How about you start washing your own clothes?" So we had no technical expertise, and we had a lot of people optimistic around what we were going to do from the start. And reached out to this company that sold serious washing machines, and we were like, "Hey, this is what we're doing." And they invited us to their boardroom, and we told them that dream of improving hygiene standards. And they said that no one will ever wash and dry their clothes in a park, and you'll never get the machines to work in the back of a van. But for whatever reason, we invited them to participate in this sort of crazy idea, and for whatever reason, they said yes. So a few weeks later, we'd emptied out this old van that we had. We drove it out. Lucas followed me. I was driving the van, and we thought we were just going to leave this van with this amazing company, and they were going to build us this mobile laundry. And then a few weeks later, we'd pick it up and go out and start helping people. And the warehouse person, who is also the world's angriest laundry technician, a guy by the name of Dan, was like, had these machines in a cardboard box, and he was like, "Here are your machines. I'm not having a bar of this." And we're like, "Oh, but you're building the whole thing, aren't you?" And they were like, "No, we don't build mobile laundry vans." And we're like, "Oh, who does?" And they were like, "I don't know, like maybe you need like a plumber or a cabinet maker or electrician." And we made a few phone calls, and no one wanted a bar of it. So we're like, "How about we just try and build it ourselves?" So that first van turned into a van which we named Sudsy. And Sudsy had two washing machines and two dryers in it, and this massive generator that we were towing to power it all up. And we thought, what better place to test our van than alongside our school food van, which had had such a pivotal impact in our life. So took the van out. Lucas was driving because I was too scared to crash the van. And there's a tool that you can buy from the hardware store that lets you turn on any tap from a council. So we started stealing water from the council. And we set the van up, and I went over to this gentleman and I said, "Hey, I know this sounds a bit crazy, but that van that you can see over there has got some washing machines in it. Do you have any clothes that we could wash?" And this guy thought I was absolutely crazy. And a few moments later, he came around, and he said, well, he gave us some possessions, and his name was Jordan. And for whatever reason, he trusted these two people with potentially his only items in his life. And we started the washing machine, and there was this massive bang. And I can remember Luke and I looking at each other, being like, I don't know if washing machines are meant to make that sound. So we called up Dan, the laundry technician, and through a few back and forwards, he was like, "I told you this would never work. You've broken both the washing machines." And unfortunately, that morning we'd been added to a long list of people throughout Jordan's life who'd let him down. And we sort of begged and pleaded for some more washing machines, and we went out to the workshop and we swapped them over. And we went out the next morning to the same park, the exact same time. And again, there was Jordan. And for whatever reason, Jordan was going to trust us again to wash and dry his clothes. So, we started setting the van up again, and we put Jordan's washing in that left washing machine, and we pressed the top button, and then we pressed the bottom button, and there was this massive bang, and it said CE on the screen, which was this critical error, and we realized at that point in time that this is something that had to work because Jordan had trusted us for 2 mornings in a row, and we were adamant to not be added to that long list of people who had let him down. So we begged and pleaded the big boss for some more washing machines. We invited Carolyn to be on our board. And then when she said yes, we were like, great, now we need some more washing machines. And we went back to the drawing board, and we weren't putting the shipping bolts in the washing machines, and we weren't converting the power correctly, and we had way too much water pressure going in, so we were shooting out the valves inside the machines. And we went back out for the third morning in a row, hopefully with this van that would work. And yeah, again, there was Jordan, and for whatever reason, he trusted us again. So we put Jordan's washing in the machine, and we pressed the top button, and we pressed the bottom button, and we were waiting for this big bang, and everything worked perfectly. And it was that morning that we realized that actually what we thought we were out there to achieve, which was wash and dry clothes for free, was so wrong, because we very quickly rewrote our mission that day to positively connecting communities, because we had nothing to do while that washing was on except sit down and have a chat. And that conversation with Jordan changed both Lucas and my life forever.
Mm, mm.
Jordan went to school just up the road from where Lucas and I went to school. Jordan was studying mechanical engineering, the same degree that my best friend Lucas was studying. He'd worked for some really big engineering firms. He'd fallen on some tough times and found himself, trusting these two guys to wash and dry his clothes. And we realized that morning that the most important things that our vans would ever carry weren't the washing machines or the complicated systems. They were actually the 6 orange chairs that sit in every one of our vans, because while the washing was on, there's an awesome opportunity to sit down and have a chat.
That is incredible. So the idea that you would go through all of those hurdles to get to a first point, and as your first, I'm assuming this is Jordan is your first customer, is that correct? And
Yeah.
from your first customer, from that starting point, you've identified that hygiene, whilst absolutely essential and a basic human right for everyone, is almost like, and it's probably not the right word for it, but you can correct me, is probably an excuse for actually just having the conversation that is actually the real crux of what people want and what people need. Yeah.
Yeah, we use the F word a lot at Orange Sky. So we don't use the word clients or customers. We use the word
Friends.
friends.
Yep. Sorry.
And,
I'll try. I'll
and
try. I'll do my
no,
best.
no, no, it's okay. And so I guess like what we realized was the power of connection, but also this idea around like the product that we were delivering, which was back then access to basic hygiene services, was only a small part because of that opportunity to for someone to be captive. Like I said, Jordan's only possessions in his life were in that washing machine, and we weren't going anywhere because we were tethered to a hose that was stealing water from the council. So what we realized is that human connection was so important to what would happen, but also it actually provided a really safe and easy way to engage. I'm someone that's naturally introverted and won't go up to someone who's a complete stranger and start a conversation. But both Jordan and I felt safe and respected to be able to get to know each other. And I think that's what we see each and every day, is that people from all walks of life come together who potentially on paper are different or shouldn't be hanging out, and we see this beauty of everyday people connecting over everyday things.
Before I forget, I just wanted to work out what Orange Sky was about as well, just like the name, the actual name.
Yeah, so Orange Sky's a song by a British singer-songwriter called Alexi Murdoch,
Oh,
and
okay.
the song Orange Sky talks about everyone being underneath the same sky and helping out your brothers and sisters. And
Makes sense.
we were 19 years old. We loved the song. We loved the name. We thought it was a cool color. There's lots of things from the hardware store and IKEA you could buy that were
It's
orange. So
practical.
we chucked it on our we chucked it on our first van. We had no IP or trademark team, and we haven't been sued.
That's great. Um, Actually, it struck me when I was reading some pre reading about the charity and so on. I was looking at I think labeling is a lot and in life, and the idea that you would describe people who experience homelessness rather than homeless people, because there is a stigma associated with homeless people with in inverted brackets. So 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 could you talk to me around this sort of stigma around what people commonly think about people who are experiencing homelessness, and what is actually reality?
Yeah, I think it's something that's so important to us as an organization, but has been something that we've had to learn and relearn and unlearn and do so much development. And every day, what we realize is that no one individual story is the same, and nor should it be, because everyone is on a different path. So one of the biggest misconceptions or stereotypes about homelessness is that homelessness is rough sleeping. And by rough sleeping, what I mean is potentially people who we would identify as homeless in major cities who are out on the streets. But that's only 6% of homelessness in Australia. The remainder are people in overcrowded, unsafe, transitional, short term accommodation. And that's where we see a lot of people who people would walk past and not even judge or assume or put in that stereotype of homelessness, who are out there in our own community, potentially our colleagues or our family members that have a lot of shame and stigma around not being able to afford a home or feel safe in their home. But being unhoused. So, language is very important to us as an organisation. And if we look at, the importance of having a safe place, a roof over your head, there's an incredible shortage of safe housing, which leads to homelessness. But also, there is so many opportunities that we can be connecting with people through really basic stuff, and that's been happening for millennia. We live on we live in one of the longest living continuous cultures in the world that have been caring for each other and connecting and sharing culture through conversation. So Orange Sky isn't a new innovation. People have been coming together for 60,000 years, and so we've just found a current way to bring people together through washing. And we're really adamant that washing and showers is critical to safe human life, but also in the future, we hope that Orange Sky can continue to find ways to bring people, whether they have a roof over their head or not, together to feel connected to their
Are there
community.
some individuals that actually um, have resources to some extent but still experience homelessness?
Absolutely. We see the people from all walks of life. I was out on shift last night and speaking with a gentleman who's got a roof over his head, who is adamant that his pathway out of poverty and financial hardship will be through starting a business, and has been in positions before where they've owned their own business, and through family and relationship breakdown, and through one or two or three things going wrong, have found themselves not in as strong a financial position as they were previously. But I also think that we see the three parts of Orange Sky's community, being the friends that we help, the volunteers that run our service, and the donors that donate to Orange Sky and make it possible. The common thing between all of those three people is that regardless of the resource that they have, they want to believe or want to be a part of our organization. And that may be because they've got more time or more money, or that they're trusting of us. And some of the wealthiest people that I've known financially have sat on an orange chair and felt connected to something that was far greater than their bank balance.
Mm, mm. I'm interested in your insights around, in on this podcast, we're often talking about the idea that the accumulation of money is kind of a byproduct of a certain number of factors that make one's life such that it's possible to be part of the money making system and for money to sort of gravitate towards you. So, as an example, to have great family connection and friendship friendship groups, and to be able to give back to community and to feel valued in part of your community, to be healthy. Um, these are some of the factors that kind of give us a potential to be part of the money making system. So when it comes to those that Orange Sky serves, is it a case that the lack of financial resources or not having money is as a result of some of these factors that I've mentioned breaking down at some point? Is that invariably always the case, or is it like somehow they just don't find that they're out of a job, or and they just can't get back in there? Is it is it does that resonate with you, that kind of concept?
Yeah, there's so many different factors. Like I think that we see people who have been born into poverty, who have never been able to know anything different, who have been incredibly resourceful, but not being able to engage because of financial hardship. We've also seen people that have known the opposite, and have had significant financial advantage, I guess if you could say that, and then have fallen on tough times, and have lost that. We also see people that, but those basic things are taken away from them in a heartbreak, in particular through natural disasters. People losing everything that they owned, and not being insured, and their house flooding, or something like that. So I guess we do see through all walks of life, people having different relationships with money, but I guess it's not one or the other. By any means, it's everything in that continuum.
Have you got a story of any individuals that you've gone and approached, and through not necessarily the hygiene aspects of the service, but through the conversational aspects of the service, you've seen a marked difference and improvement in their well-being and a move and an integration back into society? Do you have tangible examples of that?
Yeah, for sure. One of the stories that always comes to mind is, Orange Sky's now got over 50 services that go out over 350 times a week, and 3,000 volunteers that run our service. And, one of the beautifully humbling opportunities I get in my life is to go out on some of those services. And, but also, even though we had the idea, Orange Sky is all those people that make Orange Sky exist. So we always feel, Lucas and I feel like a bit of an outsider coming into a new community. So I was in Victoria once, and I dropped in on this shift, and I was trying to be helpful, and there was a pile of washing on an orange chair. So the washing machine had finished, and I eagerly got up to put that washing in the machine, and everyone like sort of looked at me and was like, "Oh, don't chuck it in the washing machine." And then it sort of clicked with me is that the washing was for a gentleman who was sitting on an orange chair with a beautiful button up, who was in his late 60s. And that gentleman every week brought down a pile of clean, laundered clothes, not because he needed washing done, but it was because it was a ticket for him to just talk to someone. That individual had lost their life partner, had experienced incredible loneliness and isolation. And just talking to some volunteers, and being treated like a normal member of society had a massive impact on their life. We've seen volunteers too who have entered retirement, and have wanted to give back to the community because they've had more time available. And one of our first volunteers, Robin, down in Hobart, finished a teaching degree, and started volunteering. And in her retirement. And during that retirement, she went through one of the toughest times in her life. Is that at the same time her husband got diagnosed with a terminal illness, and unfortunately Ron passed away. And Robin talked about having a roof over her head, but going out on an orange sky shift and being able to connect with people, because the nights were the hardest for her, being incredibly lonely or isolated. So we see people coming. For all different reasons at Orange Sky. But I also think that, homelessness is something that's incredibly complex. The average time, if someone's not housed from their first time being homeless, is 7 years on the streets in Australia. So, potentially people in and out of, homelessness that maybe for a very short period of time, but also for a lot of people that state of not having a safe place to call home is an incredibly long period of time. And what we also see is that that is a state and a being, but we see so many people that have used Orange Sky that come back, potentially years later, and say, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that." I used your service, and it had a massive impact on my life.
Mm,
And
mm,
we don't do Orange
mm,
Sky for those stories, but we do Orange Sky because we believe that every action that we do can have a positive impact on people's lives.
mm. So, Nick, I really like this idea that there's a kind of two worlds that are affected here in the sense that the volunteers that are actually, as the example, I think it was Robin you were talking about, was the retiree, if I'm not mistaken, getting a lot of value in her search for meaning post, the paid work as an example. And then obviously those that are actually receiving the service itself, getting the circuit breaker, I suppose they need to potentially allow themselves an opportunity to get back into this to whatever system they want to. I just wondered about like the observation that you have in the differences between the well-being and the happiness between those that are actually using the service and those that are actually volunteering for the service, because it strikes me that this idea of mental well-being is subjective. um, and I wondered whether you've kind of observed that there is I know obviously that we don't want to trivialize it, but because homelessness is an issue and it's a very a basic human right, to be able to have shelter and feel physical security and all of that. But is there a sense of well-being that you observe in those that use the service, which may not be present in those that are volunteering, and vice versa? Is there any observation around that? Tricky one to navigate in terms of the conversation, but
Yeah. No, and I think it's an important one to navigate is, what we see outside of people's possessions or their security is this idea of belonging and connectedness and loneliness. And I think that's why we're so passionate about
mm,
our mission at Orange Sky is around how do we positively connect communities. And those three communities at Orange Sky, our supporters, the people that fund our service, our volunteers that run our service, and the friends that trust us, and the reason we exist. All of those three communities are so important. But absolutely, people, there are thousands of people each week, thousands of loads of washing donations, volunteers that are out, and absolutely. They believe in Orange Sky and trust Orange Sky to be a part of that community. And for some people, that's because of the direct engagement they have. Maybe that's a friend and a volunteer. For a donor, it might mean because they just want to do the right thing, or for one of those donors, it might be because they've benefited from Orange Sky in
mhm,
the past. But
mm,
I
mm.
do think this idea of meaning and connectedness, and the value exchange is incredibly unique, but also sometimes the hardest thing for us to grapple with or to measure or comprehend.
Yeah. So, have you had examples and stories of people that on the volunteer side that have actually had a transformative experience in the sense of really struggling, perhaps not experiencing homelessness, but actually really struggling in other areas, maybe mourning the loss of someone, or you know, going through a divorce or whatever it might be that's kind of challenging in their lives. That this sort of having conversations with others really brings about some perspective?
Absolutely. Each and every week, thousands of hours of conversations take place on orange chairs, and you mentioned it earlier. Challenge and is a big part of Orange Sky. And we do talk about positively connecting communities, but this idea that there's a lot of things in life that are hard and difficult, and we're working with people potentially in the toughest times of their life, and we're working through incredibly complex situations. And the actual beauty to actually provide space to talk about that challenge is. In a really respectful and safe way is so important. So absolutely, we've seen volunteers like Robin that have been incredibly lonely and isolated, and have used Orange Sky to have engagement with their community. I know myself in my life, some of the toughest days I've had, I've also been out on an Orange Sky shift, and the friends that on paper I'm meant to be out there supporting me through
Hmm.
affirming my abilities, or giving me encouragement, or even just telling me that they care. So I think that there is no one directional hierarchy at Orange Sky or value chain. The value is that community of people who are coming for all different reasons.
What would you tell business owners, or those that are in um, you know working quite hard, pedaling the wheel, feeling like they've lost a little bit of touch with meaning, about the value of giving back and contribution? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that Orange Sky was founded on was having an idea and doing something about it, and then this beauty in realizing what came of that. And I think that that's something that
Mm.
I really encourage people to do. Is we're all passionate about different things, and even though Orange Sky is not for profit, money is so important to us, which we can continue to unpack. But for business owners, keeping connected to your customers, and seeing the hard work that you put into your product or service, seeing the impact that it has on people's lives, is so important. But I also think this idea of giving is so important. And giving isn't only a financial thing. Giving is time. Like I mentioned, every week we've got over 3,000 volunteers that go out. And last night I was on shift with a barrister, a filmmaker, a mum, and a teacher. And I would hate to know what the hourly rate would have been for that 2.5 hour shift, because
Yeah, yeah,
we would go. We would run out of money pretty quickly at Orange Sky if we had to pay for all of those
yeah,
volunteering
sure.
hours. But
Yeah.
that barrister wasn't there to be a barrister. That barrister was there to be Andrew, and to hang out. And I think that that's so important to why Orange Sky exists. But for that individual, they might have done that because it's their way to. It's because they've always done it, and it's a part of their family values. Or for that individual, they might have done it because they wanted to contribute to society. Like there are so many different reasons for why people give so generously, not only with their money, but their time, and who they share that time with.
We talk about it's never about and never about money, but we've acknowledged that there is a need for a certain level of financial resources to get us to a point where basic human rights are kind of secure. So I just wondered what it looks like to you from the point of view of what does that mean? Like, what should we all expect as a minimum standard, and what are those that you're supporting? What are they lacking?
Yeah, I think there's no specific number, and I think that's where I
That's true.
really
Yep.
empathize with organizations or individuals. Is that at some point things do come back to numbers, but also what we've acknowledged is that everyone is different. So what I really take from that sentiment is this idea of safety, and having the resources that you need. And for a single mother with 8 kids, her life is going to be incredibly financially different to me as a 20-year-old individual. So I do think that the number is a really hard one to grapple with when you bring it back to every individual being different, but also every individual having different needs base or relationship or complexities. So
Hmm.
the one thing I always love talking about is animals, because we're a human based organization, but also a lot of human satisfaction in our communities and in life in general comes through relationship with animals. And animals can be incredibly expensive, and healthcare for animals can be incredibly expensive. And there's some amazing organizations in Australia that support homeless individuals who don't have access to being able to afford healthcare for their pets, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to care for their pets. So and the cost of that is extraordinary. So I think there's no exact number for what that looks like, but I think what it does come back to is having the resources you need to live your life, or being supported to be able to do that in a really safe way.
Are we talking about being able to, as an example, have secure shelter, to have the ability to be able to deal with your health, your basic minimum health needs, to be able to upkeep your hygiene standards? Um, are those the types of elements that we're talking about when we talk about just like getting to a point of, okay, that's the amount of resources I need to be able to meet my basic human rights? Is that though the general ones?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always bring it back to self determinance and choice.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
um, we we should be able to choose what is our quality of life, and we should be supported to be able to live that. And for some people, that's going to be way more expensive than others, and for some people, it's going to be completely different. But I think that being able to have the privilege to choose where you live, and for that to be a safe place to live, or being able to choose where you access hygiene services from, I think is incredibly important.
Mm.
And I think those minimum viables are sometimes chosen by people that have never been in a situation where they've had to have those trade offs, and life is all about trade offs. But I think unfortunately, for so many people that we help, they don't have the choice or the autonomy to
Hmm.
live.
And it strikes me that the COVID period of time and the isolation that came with that was only validating your views around this connection piece. But also at that particular point in time, that would have been a real challenge to physically navigate. Um, can you talk me around what you learnt from that period of time, and if there's any changes that have occurred as a result of that to the model?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it very early in the start around was there any specific factors that supported Orange Sky in getting to where we have done today. And I think this idea that unfortunately there's a lot of people in life who have felt lonely or isolated or disconnected, and there's a lot of people that have washed their own clothes, or their washing machine's broken down or something like that. So they've sort of got Orange Sky, even though they've potentially not experienced homelessness in their life. But COVID was incredibly interesting, where we were fearful of our hygiene and didn't have access to hygiene services, and those community connection points around being with our family or our friends weren't safe, or were taken away from us. So we saw people really this idea of empathy almost increase even more, which we shouldn't have needed a pandemic to
No,
do that,
true.
but it gave people a lot of perspective on that. I think as an organisation, we are a not for profit, but we're still an organisation that spends money and needs money to operate. So Orange Sky is now a couple $1 million every year to exist, and that's through the generosity of so many different people. But we have staff at Orange Sky, and we had to look at how do we manage costs as an organisation through a pandemic, and how do we reduce costs and slow our spending. And there's hindsight's a beautiful thing, and I think we're really good at rationalizing things afterwards. But what we saw through the pandemic is us having to make some really tough decisions about what we spent money on. But then also we saw this unbelievable generosity of people who were going through financial hardship, being like, I want to give to Orange Sky, and donate and support. So I think we what COVID did was it validated the importance of Orange Sky, which we were obviously biased and believed in. But I think also it gave us the confidence to keep on doing what we did. And I think also, one of the things I'm incredibly passionate about is that, we're an organization based on having an idea and doing something about it. And throughout COVID, we had to come up with lots more
Mm.
ideas on how to solve those
Hmm.
problems. And, everywhere we saw sort of this rapid experimentation and resourcefulness and giving shit a go, which I think is so important to
And
progress.
as an organization, what allows you um, I suppose it's a privilege in a way to be able to ideate and create ideas and not have it necessarily disrupt your strategic plans, but also be a kind of pivotal kind of factor in the evolution of the charity. Like what allows that culture to thrive? Because I can imagine in an environment, in a I don't know, let's say an archetypal stodgy business environment, someone trying to come up with ideas and getting smashed over the head every time they do, would stifle anyone's innovation. So what allows you the ability to be this head person in imagination, which I absolutely love, because as a kid I was that person who was getting told off for dreaming. So tell me.
Yeah, I think it is an absolute privilege, and I do get that fortunate weird title. But our belief at Orange Sky is imagination, innovation is one of our values, and for Orange Sky to be successful, every individual, whether that be a volunteer or a donor or a friend or our staff, need to be able to be supported to do something and have ideas and act. So and that doesn't mean that every idea is a good idea, and it definitely doesn't mean that every idea is easy or successful, or easily rolled out. I was on shift last night, and a couple of years ago, we invented our own clothes dryer, which meant that we could remove our generators. And, it's an invention that we're really proud of. But there's a lot of volunteers and a lot of data points that we're getting at the moment that those dryers are really challenging our teams. And, that's something that that imagination and innovation of having that idea is now something that we're having to really lean into, because
Mm.
it's testing our service. And drying clothes has always been difficult, but it's really difficult to dry clothes. So yeah, I think we're incredibly privileged for friends to trust us to change our service models, or for them to share our feedback and us do something about it. We're incredibly lucky that our volunteers trust us with their patience and their time, and their ability to want to be a part of what is still a very new idea and concept. And same with our donors, is for our donors to be like, hey, here's some money. We don't really care what you spend it on, because we back you and we trust you. And that's why Orange Sky
Mm.
started, was people were like, I want you to go and do good. Here's some money. Go and do it.
So crazy thought, but as you were talking, and I know that you guys have done some pretty amazing, innovative things with the kind of washing machines and the dryers that you use in terms of sustainability and all of that sort of thing. Some of it quite game changing, I understand. So is that just for the context of what you do, or are you able to sell those, or find a commercial way of being able to sell these, and or the idea, so that you can actually feed it back into the charity itself from a commercial point of view, almost like the way I kind of think about the thank you product in a sense. Have you guys investigated that sort of stuff as well? Is that on the cards, or is that in the future, or is it happening now, or is it a stupid idea?
Yeah, no, it's a really great idea, and I think, like, I really, you know, like I mentioned, a language is really important, and this idea of not for profit and charity, and business, and products and services. For me, I see them very very similar,
Hmm.
because for the majority of Orange Sky's existence, we've made a profit, but that profit hasn't been redistributed to shareholders or directors. That profit's been reinvested,
Yep.
into the next year in growing Orange Sky's services. So we absolutely need to look at our revenue streams as an organization. And I think that, social enterprises, or products that are really great, that do really great things, they don't actually need to be a charity, or they don't need to be whatever. If there's so many products that are commercial products that have changed the world, and have bettered millions of people's lives every day. So we don't do that for our washers and dryers, because we're definitely not a very good white goods manufacturer, by any means. There's people that do that really well, but one of the products that Orange Sky does sell, and it is a revenue stream to continue Orange Sky running, is a software product called Volaby. And Volaby is now used by over 60 charities around Australia to manage all of their volunteer
Mm.
operations. And where Volaby came from was that we actually we couldn't find any service on the market to run our volunteers and train them and onboard them. So our first ever staff member at Orange Sky was actually a software developer, and we built this tool just so we could exist and have volunteers in Melbourne and Adelaide and Western Australia
Great.
without needing staff
Great.
members. And we actually then turned that into a product which other charities now use to run their volunteers,
Mhm.
but that's a revenue stream to Orange Sky.
So, what's still to do, Nick? Where are we at, and what's still to do with the charity? What are the main objectives? What's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, there's so much still to do, and that was something that I think fueled Orange Sky for a long period of time. As we launched a van in Brisbane, and then people were like, "Here's a check, go and build another van," and we're like, "Wow, how do we even build a van?" And then we had our first one of our first ever board meetings. We did this strategy session around, like, how many vans do you think Orange Sky would need? And I threw out the number 10. Like, 10 was such a big number, because every van we thought back then cost 100 grand. So it was like, well, we'll need $1 million. And for, two 19-year-olds, like, this idea of $1 million was just like unheard of. It was like, oh, that's a cool strategy. Like, have that moonshot, and then we'll maybe get 5 vans and be happy. And like I mentioned, now Orange Sky's got nearly 60 vans now. And this financial year, nearly $10 million of people will donate to Orange Sky. So we've what we thought that we were out there to do, we've absolutely been blown away with what's been achieved. And I think that sort of has always been hard to think about. Well, what does the future look like? But in all of those, strategy workshops, or in all of that dreaming or yarning with people around what we should do, a lot of it just comes back to why Orange Sky exists and what we've always done. Our belief is that in 2025, we want to be helping positively connect 40,000 people, and we want to be doing that more effectively and more efficiently. We want to be able to continue to find resilient ways to make money and sustain our service, and we want to continue to innovate. But we've looked at extraordinary innovations and worked with incredibly talented people, and we've worked with the best dreamers, being kindergarten kids, about what Orange Sky should do in the future. But it really comes back to genuinely connecting with people, listening to people, having an idea, doing something about it, and doing those really basic things that actually don't need to be made any more complicated on a strategy document. So I'm really confident that Orange Sky will continue to be doing great things, but I also think that those great things are the simple things as well.
So the irony of the fact that this podcast is it's never about money, but I want to, ask how can people support, and people that have been interested, not just on a support from a financial perspective, but of course that's really important, but also the being generous with time, um, and being able to give back from a personal exertion point of view.
Yeah, we talk about at Orange Sky, a conversation changing someone's life, and whether it be sharing the story of Jordan, and Orange Sky, or whether it be sharing that only 6% of Australia's homeless population are rough sleeping, and the majority of people are living in cars or in shelters, and not the people that are potentially stereotyped around homelessness, or whether it be checking in with a loved one and asking them how they're doing. Financial hardship is something that everyone is experiencing at the moment. And I think that idea of lived experience is something that brings people, unfortunately, together through empathy
Mm-hmm.
in that space. So I think there's so many, or giving your time, whether it be sharing your skills or volunteering. There's so many ways to engage in having an
And we can
impact
do that
on
quite easily on the Orange Sky website, or like, is that?
yeah, just our Orange Sky website, orangesky.org.au.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And so you saw the book on the table before, and you asked me about it. So um, the question that I ask is, what is your spirit animal, and why would that be your spirit animal? And I'll give you a
Um,
moment to collect your thoughts, because it's usually one that is a challenge. But it's a feeling,
the first thing that comes to mind, and I've been on the road for a couple of weeks now, and I mentioned my admiration for pets, is that I've got a puppy dog, Gambino, and he's a
Gambino.
Groodle, and he's 2 years old now, and he's like the most disobedient dog, purely because I'm not a good leader for him, and he's incredibly
He's the alpha, is he?
playful and yeah, playful and loyal and whatnot. So yeah, I think if I was a spirit animal, I'd be Gambino, in a sense of I love getting excited at new toys, or I do like just Gambino will run and be goofy and be silly, but he'll also nap and be present with people. So maybe that's why Gambino and I are so aligned. As maybe there's some similarities in each of us.
Great answer. Great name. I'm imagining it's coming from the musical artist Childish Gambino, but I may be wrong.
And it's like with any name, like we started Orange Sky, and people are like, oh, is that because orange is this color
There's
that
no
can
reason. There's
be
no
seen? And
reason.
same with Gambino, is that there's an Italian mafia gang in New York, I think, called the Gambino family or something
That's
like
right.
that. So I've
That's
learned a
love
lot
it.
about
Love
the
it.
name Gambino, but yeah.
It's great. Well, this has been fantastic in the sense that it's very different as an episode, really exploring, a theme that's kind of, challenging to broach in a way. It's quite a bit of sensitivity relating to it. So thank you for joining me and, being open to talking about all of this. And I really think the community at large will benefit quite a lot from it. So, thanks, friend. I remembered. Thanks, Nic. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for navigating it and talking it through.
If you have resonated in any way with the sentiments of this podcast, we would be delighted to direct you to our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au, for more free resources and education aimed at improving your capacity to make sound financial decisions for the benefit of your family. We wish you every success, however you define it.